Hi, it's Bishop Mark. Today is Luke chapter 12, verses 11 to 21. And there's a theme for this section today. And that theme is total dependence on God and the Holy Spirit. So the Trinity, Father, Son, and Spirit. Be completely dependent on that. And don't be dependent on other things like our possessions and our money and our status. Especially today, our possessions and our money. Jesus is just not interested in those. Let's see how this goes. When they take you before synagogues, before rulers and authorities, do not worry about how or what your defense will be, or about what you are to say. For the Holy Spirit will teach you at that moment what you should say. So even if people are angry and suspicious of you and grab you and put you before the trial, like they did to Jesus, like they did to the apostles later, Jesus is saying, don't worry. If you're dependent on the Holy Spirit will tell you what to say. Now, what's that mean for you and me? Well, we may not be dragged before courts and things, but there are times when we have to stand up for Jesus, stand up for the faith, stand up for what's right. These moments happen. But if you rely on the Holy Spirit, you don't have to worry about what you're going to say. The Holy Spirit will give you the words to say. It's like you have the most the strongest bodyguard in the world, and you should not be afraid. If you really give yourself over and just say, okay, Holy Spirit, tell me what to say, this is completely depending on God. And Jesus says, if you do that, the Holy Spirit will guide you, tell you what to say. Don't worry. See how this is about dependence on God and not money. Listen to this one. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to share the inheritance with me." He replied to him, "Friend, who appointed me as your judge and arbiter?" Then he said to the crowd, "Take care to guard against all greed, for though one may be rich, one's life does not consist of possessions." We live in a world where people are supposed to be fair, and the man is in a dispute, in an argument with his brother over the inheritance. The inheritance is what monies his perhaps deceased parents had, and one brother is taking more than he should. And this brother says to Jesus, "Tell him to stop." Well, Jesus just doesn't care about money. It's not important to him. You see, throughout the whole Bible, he's not dependent on money. He's dependent on the Holy Spirit. He's dependent on God. He wants us to be free of that thing that drives us to be greedy. Just wants us to be not greedy. And if we don't have our inheritance, well, the Holy Spirit will provide. And then he gives a story to illustrate it, to show it, okay? Here's the story. Then he told them a parable. There was a rich man whose land produced a bountiful harvest. He asked himself, "What shall I do? For I do not have space to store my harvest." And he said, "This is what I shall do. I shall tear down my barns and build larger ones. There I shall store all my grain and other goods. And I shall say to myself, now as for you, you have so many good things stored up for many, many years. Rest, eat, drink, be merry." But God said to him, "You fool, this night your life will be demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, to whom will they belong?" Thus it will be for the one who stores up treasure for himself, but is not rich in what matters to God. It's a simple story of this man who had just this huge harvest. And so, in other words, he was a farmer and he had a crop, and the crop was huge that year. And instead of sharing it with others, he decided, well, I'm going to keep it. Yeah, my barn is not big enough for all this, so I'll just build a bigger barn. And when he built the bigger barn, he had so much stuff, way, way more than he needed. He said, now I can just relax because I'm rich. I'll just be merry. God says to him, well, what if you die tonight? You can't take any of that with you. It's just there. No, what's much more important is to work on your soul, not your money, not your possessions. So Jesus is giving us a real hard message about not being greedy, taking what we need, relying on the Holy Spirit. Don't worry, says Jesus. If you're relying on the Holy Spirit, you're good. If you're relying on your possessions and your money, not so good. Okay, that's the message of today. We'll see you next time.